And I'm back. I know you missed me. I wasn't here last week, but ladies and gentlemen, I'm here. The one and only Andy Parker and my Foo Fighters. Real quick, just so you know, in case you wonder why I'm not around sometimes, I am moving to Nashville currently in the process. So if I'm in and out of some of these episodes, that is why. I think they miss me. I think the fans in motion miss me. I like to think that anyway. So there's my friends Brent and Josh. Hi, guys. How's it going?
It's all right. We're not going to let him sign the contract, folks. Don't worry about it.
Contract dispute.
He's the Vinnie Vincent of fans in motion.
So real quick, before we get into this week's episode, of course, I wasn't there for Greg Eckler. I watched it. Great episode. You guys did fantastic. And I got to admit that Greg Eckler is awesome. And I look forward to maybe some future talks with that guy. He's great. You did a great job, Josh.
Well, Greg, when we first started this, Greg has the most history going back with any of the band members. Him and Jack's career started in the early 70s. So he was one I had on my radar really early, and he came on the show. I mean, if you haven't watched it yet, take some time, watch it. I mean, it covers all that great era of the 60s, California rock. Jimi Hendrix at the Monterey Festival in 1967.
That's a great story.
That iconic picture of him summoning the flames and smashing that guitar. Greg Eckler actually caught that piece. He had that piece and he owned it for decades. It's now in the Jimi Hendrix Museum in Seattle, but just for those stories alone. But you get those early Jack Blade stories from Psalm 150 and those great Rubicon stories. So definitely, if you're here checking us out for the first time, go back, listen to the Greg Eckler interview. Go back even further. We talk about Midnight Madness on some of the previous episodes. Dawn Patrol. We rank our top 12 albums. So, we've been doing this for a little bit. We're getting better as we go. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that Greg Eckler interview was great. And just, find it. It's on YouTube and enjoy it.
Share it. Tell your friends. Brent, what were your thoughts on that episode real quick?
Well, I'm going to pull up. Andy had messaged me when we were in the middle of the episode at 9:03 p.m. Friday evening. How's it going? And I simply write back because I'm trying to pay attention. This guy is fun. And Andy writes, great. And you thought you might not want to do that. Well, it's not that I didn't want to do it because I didn't like Greg Eckler. I didn't know anything outside of really Rubicon, and I didn't want to be in Josh's way with it. But as I sat here, it was like sitting like you all were sitting there. I'm hearing it for the first time. It was definitely blown away by the stories. There was stuff that we spoke about after we turned off the episode about how he acquired his Rogers drum set because it was a drummer. He loved the tone of this guy's drums and just happened to walk into a music consignment shop, and there were these drums this guy played on a record, and he bought them.
Wow.
I mean, it was just so cool. The guy is just a gem.
Yeah,
he's great.
It was fun to listen to, and I said that I took the time and sat and listened to it, and I'm a fan of you guys, so it was a good job. So moving on, Josh,
Thank
is
you, Greg, by the
anything
way.
in this crazy pandemic world and new in the Night Ranger world, any Night Ranger news you want to share with us?
Well, we half the reason why we're doing this interview today, I got in touch with Eric, was July 3rd, which you guys will be watching this episode will come out July 1st. July 3rd, the debut single of Echo Bats comes out. It is a band that includes Eric Levy of Night Ranger, Joel Hoekstra, Night Ranger, Whitesnake, has a
Trans-Siberian.
Yep, and Brent, you want to talk about the drummer real quick?
Got Matt Starr. Matt Starr is literally an all-star on the drums. He plays currently for Ace Frehley's band. He just wrapped up not too long ago the Robin McCauley project. Andy, what was that called?
Black Swan.
Black Swan. And recently he just did another session with somebody else that I can't recall. He is like the current Eric Singer in the music business. He's pretty much have sticks will travel.
Nice.
A lot of people call upon him to play. He's a fantastic drummer.
And they got Tony Harnell on lead vocals, right, from TNT. Is famous. I mean, that's what most people would know him from.
And
you said
a short term with Skid Row.
And then,
Nice.
and then the bass player is James Lomenzo. Started out in one of Andy's favorite bands, White Lion.
Wildly underrated band.
Was in the Ace Frehley band. Was in Pride and Glory with Zakk Wylde. Was with Megadeth. I know we're missing a few more, but
David Lee Roth.
Hey, whoa! And of course, we know Brent and I are big fans of James Lomenzo from
The Amazing Race.
James did a stint.
He was a contender, and then the damn Russians. He was in Russia.
Damn, communism.
And there was no WikiLeaks involved. There was nothing. The man lost his passport, couldn't continue, and he was in the final four, I believe. Andy.
I'd have to look, but it was.
He and his partner were killing it. It's on. If you have Amazon Prime, I don't know which season it is. Look for it. Great, Amazing Race, best show on TV.
So wait, Josh, Echo Bats has got a single. Is that what it is coming out? Do we know if it's a full album or just gonna be a single?
Just a single comes out July 3rd. Go to find Joel Hoekstra, find Eric Levy. If you haven't already, they'll post something, and we'll post. I just posted something on the page right before we started. I shared, I think, Joel's link to it. So. Yeah, I think maybe it'll develop into something more, but right now, just July 3rd, just a new single.
All right, so that gets us to our next thing. Anybody got any new stuff they want to share? Music, merch, whatever.
Brent, you got anything?
Yeah, I have something, but I can't really share it. It is only available for a digital download. My boys Lit have released an album of a live concert from 1999 when they played Woodstock. And,
okay.
And as you were talking about Greg Eckler catching Jimi Hendrix guitar, Jeremy Popoff attempted to burn the guitar at Woodstock, and it all ties in. It's great. But it's available anywhere you get a digital download. If in fact, if you watched the watch party a couple nights ago, it was basically a Lit and Kiss fest. It was the best watch party ever. So hopefully we turn some people on to Lit. There's a Lit connection with Night Ranger, and that'll be discussed within the episode. So you'll just have to watch.
Josh, what do you got? Anything you're dying to show us?
Well,
Josh has got something cool.
If you guys watch previous episodes or know me, I like to go down the rabbit hole on many subjects. I've had one other album a little bit longer, but I did find this recently. A bunch of good old boys.
Drum roll.
And I'll take a picture and put it on the podcast, but if you can see that, the Rangers. So this was the band that prevented Night Ranger from being Ranger. And it's autographed too. But I'll take.
Is that to you, or just you got an autograph from somebody else?
No, I would have been 3 years old when that came out.
I know. I didn't know if you'd met them at some time down the road.
You know what we're going to do? I'll do a small we'll do a small episode on them sometime because I've researched and I've found stuff, and we'll get into the whole history of not much, but we'll talk about who the Rangers were and how it impacted Night Ranger and them having to change the name. And then the other thing, more truly, of what new I've bought, I've shown the CD on the show before, and this CD was so good that I went ahead and got it on vinyl. That's usually how I work, is I'll get it on CD, and if it's something I enjoy, I'll go get it on vinyl. A New Revenge with Mr. Kerry Kelly.
Oh, nice.
Of Night Ranger. It also has Rudy Sarzo of every band.
Yeah,
James Kotak of Scorpions and Warrant, and Ripper Owens from Judas Priest. And like I said, number one, it's a great album. It's, if you get the chance,
I gotta check this out.
Get the CD, stream it, whatever the kids do nowadays. But it's got the lyrics sleeve. It's got some cool photos of them. I don't think those are in the CD. I'd have to re-examine that. Custom label. And you just got the album cover, and then right there you got
Yeah.
Mr. Kerry Kelly. So definitely, if you get a chance, go out, track that down. Like I said, the music's good. That's the most important thing. I mean, I collect stuff just to collect it, but I was amazed on how good that CD was. And so I've shared some of the songs on the page. So if you get a chance, check it out. The vinyl's great. They did a good job on it. I love it when they do custom labels and everything. So that's what I got new.
That's very cool. All right, Brent, do you have any, or Josh, either one of you, anything Fans in Motion related, web fan page related?
Actually, I do, and I'm pulling it up right now. And as to why I'm pulling it up, I'm going to state a minor correction to a past episode when Josh was showing the Night Ranger box from Japan. And we were talking about those albums being available on iTunes. Well, 2 of the albums are on Geffen Records, which was Big Life and Man in Motion. The rest are Universal. I was looking at them the other day, and I just wanted you all to know. So if you're looking to get the remix versions, the only ones you're going to get is Big Life and Man in Motion on iTunes.
And speaking just of Universal, and I've thought about saying it before and just haven't. Universal, Geffen kind of, I think, owned a little bit of the Universal and Geffen are somewhat owned together. I think Geffen had some of the contract from Japan. You're talking about some weird business stuff when you talk about overseas labels and compared to the United States. But Universal owned basically all the Night Ranger masters. In that 2008 fire that was all over the news and bands have been suing, Night Ranger's masters were all destroyed. So
that stinks.
When you mentioned Universal, that got something up there sparked. But the good thing is, they were remastered sometime in the late 2000s, with the box set. So they at least went to the masters, remastered it. So we do have, that. But as far as I know, everything, the masters were actually lost in that fire.
All right, Brent. Anything else, Brent?
Yeah, 2 shout-outs from the page. We have Mr. Glenn Borgen shared some great pictures, live shots of the band and shots that he had with the band. And there's another fantastic picture of Brad Gillis photobombing someone's photo.
The best.
That's great that he shared that. We thank you for that. And then we move on to Mr. Craig Spots. Craig shared Colin Blades' CD, which I've been waiting for that to show up on the page. I knew it was going to show up. I didn't want to be the one to do it. We can't do everything because we want the fans to be involved as much as possible. It's your page. But, Craig shared that, thought it was really cool. And as of when I printed this page, he had 32 likes on it, and that was just on the day he posted it. So,
well, that's awesome.
But keep sharing everything, people. We love it, and we love pulling things from the page, and because we look at everything. So,
yeah, and the great thing about the page is I get a lot of people asking me about, show me pictures of the 45s of the record, and hey, is this a first pressing or what's with this? This is a promo, and what's great is it's the people I've talked to. Some of them have got back into collecting because of the podcast. Some of them are increasing their collecting because they're becoming aware of new items. I had someone today send me a copy of the 7 promo CD from, I think, Europe. And they're like, hey, what's unique about this? And, and it does have some unique things. Number one, that promo has Crazy World, which the U.S. version doesn't. So, you don't have to get the Japanese version. You can get the European promo, which also does not have Kong on it, but that's another story. But yeah, so it's great seeing all these people getting back into collecting, and I like answering those questions. And so feel free to message me. If I get my 3-year-old's driving me crazy and I can't message back right away, but I always try to get back to everybody. So that's what's really great about the page. And I think we've been talking about maybe doing a collector's episode, maybe starting with Dawn Patrol, where we really go deep of, hey, this is a first pressing boardwalk. This is a second pressing. This is a MCA. Now we got the technology with our recording system to where I can say, hey, this is a first pressing boardwalk, and I don't have to hold it up, to the screen. I can actually superimpose it over us talking. So, yeah, all the people out there on the Fans of Motion page sending me their collections and asking me questions. Very cool.
All right. Well, I think that's time for us to end this little segment. And Josh, you can throw it to introduction of what where you're leading us to, the interview.
So Eric Levy was really, I have this plan in my head of, okay, I want to get us to Eric Levy when we first started this podcast. I realized we need to learn how to work together. So it's like we need some trial episodes. We had episode 0. Go find it. It's where you learn the history of us and how we became Night Ranger nerds. And we had episode 1, which was Dawn Patrol. But we had these. I knew we needed some episodes where we would need to learn how to do this. So and we we needed to have a good, first interview to learn how to interview. That's where, Greg Eckler came in. With my finishing point of our first set of goals being Eric Levy, it got bumped up a little bit because of Echo Bats. And I really wanted to talk to him before that was released so we could kind of get into that. So we've been friends on Facebook forever. Not that, we're, kumbaya together and stuff, but, we've chatted before. And I threw it out there, and he accepted, and we made some arrangements and talked about it a little bit, and voila, here he is. And we talked, a little bit before we recorded, just introducing ourselves and everything, and trying to calm down from, holy crap, we got someone from Night Ranger, on the fourth screen. But we talked for the this interview is a little bit over 3 hours long. So we're going to break this up into 2 episodes. But it's great. We went from being in awe because, hey, we're talking to a member of Night Ranger, to it turned into just 4 guys bullshitting. And it was. Yeah. Most of the episode was 4 guys bullshitting until, if you guys watch his YouTube or his Facebook page, he's in that room where he's playing all the different, keyboards. That's where he did the interview. And we were just
Thank God.
We were just 4 friends bullshitting for a couple hours until he reached over and started playing some Night Ranger songs. Oh. And then that is where, you probably see, I probably start rubbing my nipples or something. It was just, how cool was that? I think I could speak on for all 3 of us that definitely something we will remember, forever.
Yeah, we didn't expect it.
Yeah,
and like you were saying, the great thing was it went from being an interview actually to a conversation.
Yep.
And I think if they can all be that simple,
this is easy work.
It's very easy work because
it's just talking to a friend, man, who just happens to be a Night Ranger.
Well, and the good thing about this this is a Night Ranger podcast, and when we were coming up with this idea of a Night Ranger fan page, Night Ranger podcast, my whole philosophy, and I think I speak for both of you, was we're not on any time constraints. We're not trying to do a 30-minute interview. We're not trying to just do an hour interview. We will talk about every subject, and we'll talk as long as we can. We're not here to get the most views. We're here just to satisfy ourselves, really.
Yep.
I don't care if I get 5 views. I don't care if I get 1,000 views. I want to just ask the questions about the band that I enjoy. And that's almost basically our goal. Our dream came true with this interview. We talked for 3 hours, and and I don't know exactly where I'm going to break this interview off and make part 2, but to me, and we haven't really even discussed this in our pre-production, that story where Eric realized basically, hey, I have a little bit of fame, or something's different with this. Because remember where he's walking through the casino for the first time? Hearing that story is great, and hearing his stories about being in Northern Illinois and his parents and sister. I mean, that's stuff you're not going to get in some other podcast. But this is a Night Ranger podcast, damn it, and you're going to get it here.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy the first part of the Eric Levy interview. All right, everybody, we are here. We're doing a great little interview here. Of course, you've got Josh and Brent. I'm Andy. I'm back. And with us is the one, the only, Eric Levy from the band Night Ranger.
Yay!
Thanks for having me.
I was the only one that came prepared. I brought the sunglasses just in case he was wearing his.
40 seconds in and the sunglasses are on.
We are the fans in motion. We are crazy. We love it. We're so excited. Eric, we can't thank you enough. Honestly, it's awesome.
Got my Kiss sunglasses.
Eric, I have no sunglasses and
Super
no
appreciate
control
it.
over
Thanks,
the
Andy.
If I had thought about it, I would have gotten the blue scrubs and the hat. Just
that's yeah.
The Fitz Midnight Madness look.
That's Alan Fitzgerald. I never went for the smock myself, but. Props to him though for pulling it off in great style.
Well, listen, it's only 3 years until you have the 40th anniversary of Midnight Madness. So,
and by the way, real quick, we did a show last week, and somebody had posted Night Ranger cards that were on eBay, and it's a picture of you, but it says Alan Fitzgerald underneath of it.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah,
I felt bad for Alan when I saw it. I'm like, really? But yeah,
I said now.
Well,
Eric knows how Eric Singer and Tommy Thayer feel now when they get called Ace Frehley and Peter Criss.
Well, maybe the second series will have the Alan Fitzgerald with the Eric Levy name across it. So
that's a collectible one.
Yep.
There you go.
That's awesome. So Eric, we appreciate your time. We know your time is valuable. So, answer as much as you want, talk as long as you want, or as little as you want. If something you want to talk about, we can skip it. It's no big deal. We just let's go back to the beginning if you can quickly, and you can do it at your own pace. But my questions start with when did you start playing? And are you from a musical family, or were you the only one that really had the musical bug?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My dad was a touring musician. He wasn't with any famous bands or anything, but he was back in the 70s. There was a touring circuit where hotels would have a lounge band come in for a week or two. So he was part of that circuit. Actually, Kelly Keggy, if you have him on the podcast in the future, ask him about his own experiences pre-Rubicon with that kind of thing as well. But he's my dad's territory was more East Coast, I think. But he and Kelly never met back in the 70s. But
would that have been at the same time?
Yeah,
that'd have been cool.
Oh my gosh, how crazy would that have been?
Yeah, really, I know.
Full circle at that point.
Well, there was a great band out of Kansas City at the Ramada Inn there, Fort Jackson and Jill.
That's a nice little movie reference there.
Spinal Tap. But speaking on what you said, Eric, I think that's how Kenny Rogers discovered Don Henley, and the
really? I never heard that.
I don't know that story.
Kenny Rogers signed. I don't know if it was exactly the Eagles. I think it was a band called Shiloh, which was fronted by Don Henley. Kenny Rogers was with Kenny Rogers in the first edition, and they were playing at a hotel, bar, and Kenny Rogers saw them and signed them to their first management deal. He eventually let them out because he believed in their music so much, but what you said, Eric, with your father, doing that circuit, it was, a real legitimate circuit that unfortunately really doesn't exist today.
Now, can you tie that to Kevin Bacon somehow?
There you go.
It's funny. You brought up Don Henley. I actually have a Don Henley reference later in my question, but we could jump to it while we're on the subject.
Sure.
Eric, I know you have said in other interviews, someone you like is Bruce Hornsby. his playing style.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I seen Bruce Hornsby once in concert. It was really interesting because it wasn't my style. I was an '80s hair guy, but
Sure.
I was also a huge Don Henley fan, and I didn't put it together until someone pointed out to me that if you listen to "End of the Innocence," song, that's got Bruce Hornsby's signature all over it. If you listen to the way he plays that song, and I'm like, wow, where was I at? And I don't know if you knew that when you ever heard that song. I didn't know until somebody pointed it out to me, and I was like, oh my God, now that's all I hear is Bruce Hornsby. And he did it in the concert after I saw it. He played it.
So
yeah, amazing song, absolutely amazing, love it.
Yeah, he's a great writer.
Eric, where were you? Where did you where did you enter this blue marble we call Earth? Where was you born, and where was you raised?
Born in suburbs of Chicago and raised in the suburbs of Chicago, and great place to be from. You know? Didn't
New Jersey, right?
Feel that way growing up with the snow and all that, but yeah, as far as the music I was exposed to, the musicians who I was playing with and cutting my teeth out there, there's a very it was fun when I got into Night Ranger, and Joel Hoekstra is also from Chicago, and the funny thing is that the city's big enough where the two of us weren't in the same circles when we were there at that time, but yeah, really realizing after I moved to California and then being on the road with Joel, like how there's kind of like this blue collar kind of attitude, I think, to Chicago musicians, where it's like, I'm just going to go play, I just want to go work, and any style I should be able to cover, and there's a very very workmanlike kind of attitude, I guess, for Chicago musicians. But that being said, once I moved out to California, I think I got what I needed musically, which was, coming from Chicago, I was very utilitarian, and like, okay, what keyboards do I absolutely need to bring on the gig to be able to pull off the meat and potatoes sounds?
Yeah.
And got out to the Bay Area, California, and suddenly realized, like, wait a second, it's actually about finding my own sound and having my own, finding my own unique voice that I can communicate with through the keyboards. I really wasn't coming from there at all, coming from Chicago. So I think both locations have benefited me.
So when you say suburbs of Chicago, Cubs fan, White Sox fan, or were you just mad at the world and became a Cardinals fan?
He's a Bears fan. Let's say, go ahead and just go Bears or Bulls.
I am a Bears fan.
Cincinnati fan?
Cincinnati Reds. There you go. My grandfather grew up on the South Side. He's from Hyde Park. So because of him, my dad, even though my father grew up in the north suburbs, he grew up a White Sox fan. So then, myself growing up in the northwest suburbs, it was like everybody I knew was a Cubs fan, and I went to 2 games at Wrigley Field seeing the Cubs before I even ever went to Comiskey. But because my dad was a Sox fan, I rooted for the Sox. But then it was like, because I was a North Sider, and especially once I got to the age where I was playing in bars, there are no bars to play at around Comiskey Park. Or,
right.
Now.
Go to Wrigleyville.
Calling that place now, but Wrigleyville, there's tons of live music everywhere.
That's all it is.
I was spending a lot of time in that area. So nowadays, I'm like, I'd like to see both teams do well, and until I talk to my friends from Chicago, and they're still like, no, you have to pick one. You can't root for both. So,
I got your next tour outfit. You need to go get one of those old '70s throwback softball jerseys the Sox wore with the big collars. You'll stand out like crazy on stage. You will
Eric,
not be just known for your playing.
I believe you there.
Eric, I got a more important Chicago-based question. Do you like Portillo's?
Oh, Portillo's. Oh.
And what's your pizza place of choice?
Pizza place of choice for thin crust, I like Rosati's.
Yeah.
And for thick crust, I like Lou Malnati's.
See, I think everybody says Giordano's, but people that live there.
Is great.
People
really
that don't live there, they go to Lou Madonna's. But I love Portillo's. I go to Chicago quite often, and it's one of my favorite places.
Oh, we had our former tour manager, Todd Confessori, who sadly passed away last year. But he was like, whenever we would play in Chicago, like he would have it all lined up where by the end of the show, like somebody had gone out and gotten Portillo's
Italian beef.
He had like his own custom way of doing it. Like he liked to order what they call the combo, which is the Italian beef and the Italian sausage. But he would have like, put cheese on there, and they have like chocolate cake milkshakes that you can get. So he would just have like tons of these chocolate. It was like complete Portillo's decadence.
Yeah, if you Josh and Brent, you ever get up, or you got to hit Portillo's. It's great. Great little sandwich place.
I always hit Naperville, which is on the west side, and there was a family restaurant called Grandma Sally's that, this old, it looked like, it was in a Quentin Tarantino movie or Goodfellas,
nice.
But, it was great. I don't think it's there now. I think they eventually closed it, but it was there forever. But, yeah, I never went for the pizza. I always went and stayed in Naperville and went to Grandma Sally's family restaurant.
Awesome.
Naperville's a great suburb.
Yeah.
That's a nice spot.
Yeah.
My fiance's company's based out of there, so we're up that way quite a bit.
And if you go a little bit further west, I think you hit Aurora, and if you lived there in the 70s, you were actually issued a copy of Frampton Comes Alive.
And you had to go to Tim Hortons and get some donuts, eh?
That was what, Wayne's World 2? Am I spitting out there? All right.
Aurora, Illinois, Wayne's World. There you go. And I went to school at Northern Illinois University, so I would drive through Aurora and through Naperville.
Yeah.
Whenever I was going out there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And there's no Stan Mikita's donuts, right? There's no Stan Mikita's.
No.
Right. I still never tried one of those, but it's iconic from the movie for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
All right, so get back to our questions and our interview and stuff. You play the keyboards. Are there any instruments that you play and play well or dabble with?
Oh, as I mentioned before the interview, or before the podcast started, I was playing drums in school band when I was a kid. So it's my dad started teaching me piano lessons when I was 5.
Wow.
But then I started pretty young. He had actually the same keyboard that I have behind me. This if you can see this Wurlitzer.
Oh yeah.
That's the exact model of keyboard that I grew up learning on. That's what we had at the house. So I was playing like Bach piano pieces and all that on a Whirly, which might kind of, have something to do with the direction my career has gone.
He wasn't teaching you Rachmaninoff at 5?
Oh, right.
That frenetic.
There's some great classical pianists, and I'm not one of them. I'll play classical music for fun, but yeah, there are people who can seriously rock the Rachmaninoff.
I don't know much, but I have a relative who's a classically trained, and when I hear something I like, I know it. And his frenetic, chaotic playing, I just like, God, it's insane, but he knows exactly what he's doing. So.
Oh, excellent.
So
classical, whole other world, but yeah.
So do you still play around on the drums then? Because drums and piano they're both percussive in a sense. So are you still playing drums any? Because Brent and I are both drummers. We're fascinated by anybody who wants to play the drums or can play the drums.
Oh, excellent. I don't play drums anymore, but I feel like learning to play the drums has a huge had a huge influence in the way that I approach the keyboard, and it's it's a percussion instrument. So I've basically got 10 drumsticks here, I guess.
Right.
I guess you could think of it as, and I'll do like paradiddles on different fingers and go through the drum rudiment books, or I'll be on like the airplane, like trying not to like annoy my neighbors, but I'll be like this on the the seats, like ooh, flamadiddles. They're doing that kind of stuff.
I get a lot of my fiance going, could you stop doing that? I'm like, I can't. It's in me. I don't know how to stop doing it. That's the problem.
You know what you got to do is when you have some concerts again, you need to kick Kelly to the side when you're all coming out banging on Kelly's drum set and show him what you can do.
Oh,
Because Kerry's up there on the tom, and you just got the
Kerry
bass
gets
drum.
out there. He's so full of energy. He's like,
He is.
"Come on," and then starts playing. It's people are into it. Kerry rules at that moment.
Yeah.
But thank you though. Yeah.
So Eric, when you were, let's say, 12 years old, what was in your record collection? What was influencing you at that time?
Wow. Well, my mom was really strict when I was young about what I was allowed to listen to, and she basically felt like anything on secular 80s radio was too secular, I guess would be.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
so it's until 1987 when we got cable TV, which I was how old was I in 1987? I was 12 years old.
Oh, nice call.
Yeah. And so at that point, age 12, all of a sudden, for the first time, I could watch MTV. And for the first time, I could watch, I have to confess, I actually watched more VH1 back there than I watched MTV. I'm not, that might sound like sacrilege.
So that's a lot of Taylor Dane and Huey Lewis in the News.
Michael Bolton. Michael Bolton.
Well,
Richard Marx.
They were playing Bruce Hornsby on VH1. They weren't playing Richard Marx.
Well, he had to be
they
a
were
culture
playing
shock
Huey
to you.
Lewis. Yeah.
I mean,
No shout at the devil.
No, not VH1. have to go to MTV for that one. I'm sure. Yeah, but right. By then, all of a sudden, I was able to listen to everything, and my whole my world was opening up at age 12. Musically.
So before that, was it a lot of Christian rock and roll? Lots
of Christian rock, lots of, but I was allowed to listen to 50s and 60s rock. My mom was, I don't want to say she was hypocritical, but she.
Yeah. Well, Tutti
Mom,
Frutti.
You weren't hypocritical.
Tutti Frutti and all those other songs. I mean, they actually probably come out more to the point than maybe some of the 80s, metal songs. But
they weren't very subtle.
Yeah, like Good Golly, Miss Molly, Sure Like the Ball. Come on now. Come on.
So were you listening?
You just came out and said it. You're right.
So a lot of Petra and what was the other one? White Heart or something like that. A lot of those Sacred Reich.
Yeah.
All right.
Bands like that. Michael W. Smith.
Yeah.
His earlier albums, especially, really creative, really interesting chord changes in his songs, lots of modulations.
Mm.
He got more pop oriented by the 90s, but his 80s music was, as a keyboard player growing up, he was the Christian rock guys who I think I was listening to most as keyboard players were him and forgive me, I'm forgetting the name of the Petra's keyboard player now, but the way that he was rocking the organ and the synths in the early days definitely made an impact too. And one other guy is Andre Crouch. For growing up in Chicago, it's real gospel music, black gospel music oriented music coming out of there. And Andre Crouch was my mom had a bunch of his albums when I was a kid, and that's still I'll still go back and listen to that music. Very, very much influenced.
So going out of high school, was music the direction you were going in, or was you going to go and be an accountant and music was secondary? What did you know at that point that music was where your life you wanted to be headed?
Well, earlier on in high school, even through my junior year, I wanted to program computers. That's what I wanted to do. I had an old Mac, or not a Mac. I had an Apple IIe. that I got for my birthday.
I thought you were gonna say a Commodore.
Oh, I never had a Commodore. My best friend back then had a C64.
Oh, wow.
So we'd be hanging out. I'd be on my Apple. He'd be on his Commodore.
Floppy disks out so you could play Doom or something.
Yeah, it's I always felt like the gaming experience was better on the Commodores at that point. It had a color display. I just had the green screen, but I was into it. I learned how to program BASIC back then and DOS 3.1 or whatever they were calling it back in the day. And so that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to program computers, and I don't know. I was into music, but I just wasn't looking at that as a viable career. And then the summer between my junior year and senior year of high school, my dad at the time was playing with with a band that played all 50s and 60s era rock. So he invited me out. He's like, hey, we've got this show, and we don't have a keyboard player, and it's all songs you've heard all these on the radio. Just come out, and if you don't know something, you don't have to play it, and just bring your keyboard and play if you want. And I was like, cool, yeah, I'm into it. So went and played with those guys a couple times, and then out of that, there was a guitar player named Keith Grant who was on the gig, and he ended up hooking up with this Elvis impersonator named Joe Solozzi. Nice. Actually, just saw Joe. He was at our show in St. Charles in February. And so he was putting together a band to be an Elvis impersonator, and Keith was his music director. So Keith got both me and my dad on the gig. So before I know it, I'm like entering senior year of high school, and like going to rehearse once a week, and all these guys are in their 30s, and I'm here, 16 years old. Kid. and just having a blast, and we're going out on weekends playing in bars, and I was like, wow, this is so fun. I was so into it. I was like, really, this could be like my job, huh? So I remember thinking like, okay, well, I think I could be good as a computer programmer, but I think I can be a better musician. I remember thinking, and I just figured, I got one life, just go for it. Do what I really want to do.
Absolutely.
Dropped my AP calculus class, even though I was still on the math team. And
wow.
Yeah. I was kind of a nerdy kid, I guess.
I wouldn't say. I was gonna say that, but yeah. Brett and I never saw AP calculus. We never saw calculus, let alone AP.
I can't even spell it.
I made it to geometry and got kicked out. So.
Right on. Music and math seem to. You're a drummer, though.
I know.
You got to have some math skills going on.
I mean, I can count to 4. Come on. I got this all day. Yeah. You want Jesse's girl? I am your guy.
He can count to 20 when he takes off his shoes.
Nice.
So sad. It's sad.
So where does playing with your dad and playing with that band, where does it lead you? Did you eventually go just play professionally? Did you go to a school and go like through music theory? Where was your next path in your career?
Sure. Yeah, I ended up going to Northern Illinois University to study music. I was a jazz piano major, and actually to continue to put a bow on that drum story. A week and a half after I graduated high school, I was out playing basketball, and ended up fracturing my wrist. So I was in like the full arm cast for a few weeks, and then I remember by the 2 weeks after that, they had me in a straight arm cast, and I actually went and played a gig with the Elvis impersonator, but I couldn't use my thumb, but I could use these 4 fingers. So I was like, okay, 9 fingers. That fortunately they're like, yeah, come out and play. And but I ended up going out to Northern a week early to try out for the drum line, and still was in a lot of pain when I would try and play the drums, and I didn't make it. I didn't make it on the drum line. Oh, and I was mad. I was a very cocky young kid at that point. Actually went into the guy's office and told him what a mistake he was making, and
you'll regret this someday.
Right, but it's funny how these things go. It's like in retrospect, that's one of the greatest things that ever could have happened to me, because it's like that's what really caused me to focus on okay, I'm just focusing on piano. And if I would have tried to be spreading myself thin, I wouldn't have gotten the education or the experience that I did. So in retrospect, that was actually a very good thing that happened.
So you had to be a pretty good drummer. I mean, you were going for drumline. That's no joke. That's serious percussion.
Well, I didn't make it.
You went for snare? I guess I could tell the same story. I went for drumline too. He didn't make it. Big sniff. I decided to pursue keyboards. Didn't make that either, but it's all good.
Am I the only one that hasn't been turned down for drumline?
No, you can say it too, Josh. You can say it too.
I might be the best one, the drummer here. I don't know.
I mean, look, Nick Cannon made it. You could do it.
I told Rick Allen at Def Leppard that I blame my mediocrity on him because he's still better than me with one arm.
Oh my God!
He crushes it.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I remember I told him, I said, my God, I said, you're better than me with one arm. Yeah. And he just started laughing. And he had a good sense of humor about it. I meant no disrespect.
So you guys are all talking about drummers and one arms. So I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the current drummer for Y&T.
Mike.
Yeah, I can't remember his last name, but anyways, he was over in Europe. They're on tour. He falls, breaks his arm or fractures it, and he plays the next remaining dates with one arm.
Whoa.
And the other one in a cast. There's video of it obviously out there. It was only like maybe 7-8 years ago. But yeah, if you get bored, Y&T, I don't know.
I imagine he's not using foot pedals like Rick Allen, so he's doing rundowns.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Tell you this,
that's a lot of double sticking right there.
Andy and I both have Roland electronic drum sets.
Nice.
And I have a set on the Brain where I can use my hi-hat pedal as a snare drum. And I'm telling you, I can rock some pour some sugar on me with one arm now. I mean, I really can. It's awesome.
Rick made all us drummers try to be better because we all start in our cars. We're all tapping with our left foot. Can I play a rundown like Rick? I mean, that's a side. We're sidebar. We'll get back to Eric.
I want to hear about Air keyboards.
So
I want to hear about the cruise ship when we get to that because I have some questions about that.
well, we already asked the most important question about the cruise ship, but
we can't talk about that.
No.
So
I mean his days on the cruise ship as a cruise ship.
I recorded it for blackmail, but
there you go.
Free Night Ranger tickets. So let me ask you this: did you graduate, or did a career opportunity come along?
I did not graduate. I was there for 4 years, but I got mono, and that knocked me out for a semester. But then, I wasn't a very responsible kid. I've gotten more responsible as the years have gone on, a little. But at the time, I was at some point I got it into my head that I could either be at school to try and be the best musician that I could be, or I could be at school to try and get a music degree. And it's not that cut and dry. But the thing that made me stop trying to get but all this being said, I'm so happy I went to Northern Illinois University. I got an incredible education. With or without a piece of paper, I would not be the player I am today if I hadn't gone there. It was amazing. But they had this what they called convocations, and it's basically the way that the university gets people to attend recitals. Because the last thing you want is like for somebody to give their senior recital and nobody shows up. So the way it works out is you basically have to go to one of these recitals a week, whatever you want, and then somebody's at the door to write down that you were there and give you credit. And then but you have to have these credits to graduate. They don't let you graduate unless you go to a recital a week. And so at the time I was home every weekend in Chicago playing gigs just to pay to go to college. And plus, especially about like year 3, I was playing on a bunch of recitals. I was, a bunch of my classmates would say, hey, will you play on my recital? And I never wanted to turn anybody down. So finally I was like, well, all these recitals I'm missing, and I don't get paid to play on people's recitals. The very least they can do is like give me this convo credit for all these hours I'm putting in and not getting anything back whatsoever. And when I asked about it, and they're like, no, we're not going to give you convo credit for recitals you play in. And that was it for me. I'm like, okay,
yeah, I'm out.
I'm not going to worry about this piece of paper. It's, you know, it's in the end, I think the main reason I didn't graduate was because I was an irresponsible kid.
You've done okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's worked out. Night Ranger never said, hey, you know, you got to get that degree before we can have you on a show.
Yeah, like your resume, but right here.
It has some downtime to think about it, so you better be. You know.
A lot of people go to school for 7 years. Yeah, they're called doctors.
Right.
That's the greatest line.
Or liberal arts majors, you know.
Oh shit! That was funny.
All right, so you're not graduating.
Right.
You know, how did mom and dad take that?
Neither of them graduated.
Yeah. In your face.
So when you said that to them, they were like, "Oh yeah, I guess that's right," and totally understanding.
The conversation was more like once my sister graduated high school, and then talking to my mom about that and her being real with me, like, you know, I don't know if we can afford to have you guys both in school, and I remember being like, you know, for my sister, and my sister's a full-time music teacher, and she teaches in schools and very much uses her degree. So I remember at the time being like, you know, and realizing at that point, I'm probably not going to need this degree for the kind of work that I want to do, and she will. So, yeah, it felt good at the time. It was like I was doing something for my sister. And the other, I guess the other thing that I should bring up regarding all this is that my professors actually told me to leave. They told me. At the end of every semester, you're supposed to do what they call a jury. And you go and prepare a couple pieces and play them for your professors, and then they talk to you about it. And so the last semester that I was there, I played my jury, and I'm sitting there looking at the faculty, and one of them straight up said, "What are you still doing here?" and like the others didn't say anything, like they seemed to agree. And he was like, "You shouldn't be here anymore. You should go out and play music." And I was like, okay.
Done and done.
It's time for me to go play music. So tying into the cruise ship thing, my first 2 summers as a summer job, I was working out at Busch Gardens theme park in Williamsburg, Virginia, and just playing in the Italy part of the park. They had at least back then, I don't know if they still do, but they would have music there of just all like old 1940s style big band music, jazz music, and people would come out and dance, and we would be out there playing. And so there was a guitar player who was in the country band at the time who ended up becoming friends with, and he ended up then getting this gig as a music director out on Premier Cruise Lines. So he called me to come out and play on the boats. And the first time he called me, I was like in my dorm room. And I was like, I'm in the midst of this semester. I'm like in my dorm. I can't just like leave and go to the Bahamas. Amazing as that sounds.
I'd have found a way for that one.
But my second 2 summers of school, though, those next 2 summers, then I went and worked on ships with my friend, Matt Ascione is his name. And so then when I left school, I was like, well, you know, all right, I'm done with Illinois. I'm done with Chicago. I'm just going to go hang in the Bahamas. And went and worked on cruise ships for a couple of years. This was 97 and 98. I was full-time on the boats. And at that point, like my whole life's ambition was just like, I just want to see the world, working on cruise ships and partying every day. And like that was my whole ambition at that point in life. And it was really fun. Like for anybody who might be a musician in your early 20s, highly recommended. It was great just from like a music learning kind of perspective too, just the amount of different styles that we would have to cover, and I really did. It was almost kind of like an extension of school, but it was also just like a nonstop party. It's like every day, every night, like stumble up the stairs to go play my show, and then hit the bar, and yeah, it was a total party at that point. And the thing that ended up bringing me back to Chicago was my college professor. His name is Fareed Haq, and when I was at school, he was the guitar professor actually, but he ended up taking me under his wing, and of all the professors out there, he was the one I was like, okay, that guy, the way that he plays music, he's the one who I want to be playing with. So he called me to join his band, and that was enough for me. So I left cruise ships, moved back to Chicago, joined his band, and do you want me to keep going with the life story, or?
Can I jump in real quick? That one question.
Please, yeah.
So Eric, when I was 19, 20-ish, I had zero direction in my life, and still dreaming of being a rock star. I got a bug up my butt I thought, I'm going to go join a cruise ship. I want to do this. And I made a couple of phone calls. I didn't get as far as doing anything other than talking about it. But since you did it, I mean, that's why you would kind of fill me on the experience of it. Was there an audition process, and was it hard? And from my understanding, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, is do the musicians do anything other? Like, do they have to like help out on the ship, or are they just musicians and that's their gig? I was always under the impression that when you're not playing, you're helping doing something else.
Kitchen duty, because
everybody's working, and and is it basically just being in a big cover band playing 200 different songs?
Yeah, let's see. Where do I start on that?
Is there an audition?
Is there an audition? I did not audition because it was my friend Matt was the MD on the boats, or the MD of the band in the disco at the time, and it's right as I was getting involved with Premier Cruise Lines was right about the time that they had negotiated something where the guy who was the MD of the house band, Matt Nygren, I haven't talked to Matt Nygren in years. I hope Matt, if you happen to watch this podcast, I hope you're well.
Josh, reach out to
him. He had worked out this deal with Premier Cruise Lines, which was like, hey, at the time he was the music director of what they called the house band. So there was the house band was the one that would, we would play like play on and off the Magicians or the Jugglers,
gotcha.
And play the Captain's Cocktail sets and play for back up the singers and back up we had a company called Legends in Concert, which they're still around. I still have friends who are doing that gig. But they had impersonators, so it'd be like, sometimes I'd be playing like Blues Brothers or Elvis or Tina Turner or whatever impersonators happen to be in the rotation at whatever point. But all that being said, I never auditioned. It was just, sorry, I skipped that. So Matt Nygren had worked out this thing with Premier Cruise Lines, like, hey, if you pay the band better, then I can get musicians who are good enough to play in both the house band and the disco, and you'll save money. And they went for it. So I ended up with, as cruise ships go in that era, I ended up with a good spot, with a good position. And as far as if we were ever asked to do any extra work, not until the very end of my stay. So that it was within a couple years, I think, after I had left that Premier Cruise Lines folded, and so I was starting to see the downturn shortly before I left. And so it used to just be like we would just have to show up and play, but other than that, we could do whatever we wanted. So I would be. Man. Yeah, I'd be hanging out on the beach all day, and then go play a few shows at night. And that was my lifestyle at that point.
You'd be up on the Lido deck hanging out with Isaac and Captain Steubing.
Julie, could you imagine doing that today with Corona and then getting quarantined in those little cabins? for 30 days. I think you go stir crazy.
Well, it depends on
I think
who
some
you're...
of those people were stuck a lot longer than 30 days.
Yeah.
Too. Like months. Yeah.
I would say the only audition really probably would have been, don't get seasick. Make sure you're able to handle your booze. and
show up on time.
Well, that could be negotiable, but be able to play really hungover, and probably realize that yes, you are getting paid well, but there's some things that probably don't show up in a paycheck.
Listen, I'll be honest. You said speaking about showing up on time. I've played gigs and cover bands where we're waiting, the keyboard player or the bass player's running late, so you do a set based on who you have available. So no keyboards. Guess what we're not doing? There's no Journey in this set. There's no Night Ranger in this set. It's going to be AC/DC and some acoustic stuff.
Yeah, do what you got to do to make the gig happen. Totally.
Hey, as long as I was on stage, I didn't care. I just wanted to be on stage. All right, go ahead, Josh. I didn't mean to jump on you there.
Oh, I'm just sitting back listening. So after the cruise ship, where you said you kind of went back to Chicago after that because of your mentor. You said it was Fareed Haque, correct?
Yeah.
So tell
you got the pronunciation right.
Yeah. Well, I practiced for about an hour today.
Yeah, I know where this is going now too.
So tell us a little. Okay, so you said he was your mentor. You talked a little bit about him. So how did he guide your career? Where did his leadership basically take you after that?
Well, so I joined his band, and at the time, so like circa 1999 or so, I was just in this mode of like, okay, I'm just gonna work as much as I can. It was the whole Chicago musician kind of, whatever the gig is. I had at one point I had a gig that was it would start at 1:45 a.m. on late Monday nights, early Tuesday morning. So whatever my Monday night gig was, I would go play that, and then have time to go home and then like go back out to go downtown, go play at this jazz club from 1:45 a.m. until whenever they would close, usually between 3:30 and 4:30 a.m. And my job was like, there would be just random singers would show up in the middle of the night and just want to sing jazz tunes. So a lot of it was me just like hanging out, backing up local singers who just wanted to get up on stage and sing at 3 a.m. at a Chicago jazz club. So yeah, I was doing stuff like that. Lots of weddings, corporate parties. I had some creative bands as well that I was working with. Working with a band at the time called Mr. Myers, those guys are still together, I think. They've been together for decades and decades, playing Bob Marley, Jimmy Buffett covers at suburban bars.
Oh man!
in Chicago, having like Jimmy Buffett fan club people, making it their event of the week or whatever, all to come see that band. So I was just playing whatever, some of it was creative, some of it was just to pay the bills, and meanwhile still playing shows with Fareed and his band, and all of a sudden it was like overnight I just noticed, like, we played a show one night and there was like the whole place was packed with people. Like all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, not that nobody was coming to the shows, but all of a sudden it was like packed, and it was people who looked different than the kind of like the more jazz oriented crowd that I would usually see. This was younger people who looked like wearing tie dye and not shaving their armpits, like
sexy.
And I was like, where, how did this happen? What's going on with this? And so it kept up for a few months, maybe a couple months, and then I got a call one night from Fareed, and he said, hey, so I've started working with this band out based in San Francisco, and we're looking for a keyboard player, and are you into it? And the manager's about to call you. Okay. So next thing I know, I'm going out to San Francisco for the first time, and just fell in love with Northern California. just absolutely fell in love with it. The people, the quality of life, the climate, and the music. It was like, not that this wasn't present in Chicago, but it was I don't know if you're familiar with the jam band scene or ever heard that term before, jam band. To me, this was completely brand new at this point. Like I had listened to, I had a few Grateful Dead albums, and that was it. I had never been to a Dead show. I had never even heard of a jam band. In fact, I remember that first phone call with the manager saying, so what style of music does this band play? And he's like, it's a jam band. I was like, what's a jam band?
Style.
I was completely green. I was like coming at this thing completely green. And but San Francisco is like epicenter, or one of the primary epicenters for the jam band scene, being the home of the Grateful Dead and many other bands that have come out since. So yeah, before I knew it, I was coming out to San Francisco to play shows, and I'd end up staying for longer and longer, and crashing on the drummer's couch in between tours. And he was the guy who had been in the jam scene previously. Alan Hertz is his name. He had been with a band called KVHW. Steve Kimmock, who's a big name in the jam scene, was the guitar player in that band. So that was how Alan got in. And then when that band split up, Alan hooked up with Fareed and with the bass player Kai Eckhart. So boom, before I knew it, touring band, and I was barely home anymore. And spent 10 years basically doing van tours, crisscrossing the country, playing jazz fusion for hippies, basically.
That's awesome.
Now, was that Garage Mahal?
Yeah, Garage Mahal.
So, wait, that wasn't Brides of Funkenstein?
No, Brides of Funkenstein is different. Yeah.
I love that name.
I love that band. Don Silva. Yeah. Yeah.
So let me interject here real quick. So you did one album with a band called the Clinton Administration, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And that was an album where you guys did all Sly and the Family Stone songs, right?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Well,
wow, that's an obscure.
Yeah.
You actually have a copy of the album. I actually had to buy my copy. I didn't even get a free. I had to buy it.
This is a promo copy marked out, but I always liked Sly and the Family Stone. I mean, you can't, I've just if you don't like their music, just watch a documentary on them. The story is interesting, and if all the people out there who follow our podcast, yes, I'm talking to all three of you,
tens of you.
We interviewed last week Greg Eckler, who had with Rubicon had a connection to Sly and the Family Stone. So there's a great Sly and the Family Stone story he told us, which we'll tell you when we stop recording. But anyways, I wanted to, or probably Jack and Brad know it. Just ask them if they know if Jerry Martini told him the Sly story about Wednesday. That's all you got to know.
I will ask. and to tie everything together, the times that I've played with Jerry Martini were with Brides of Funkenstein.
Well, let's go into that there.
That.
So, we got a little bit of Rubicon.
See how we do that?
Yes. Let's say, so what year would this have been?
So I was jamming with those guys maybe like 2005 through 2010-ish. And the last show I played with them was the best one. That was incredible. I had when I first moved to California, this was in 2002, and I spent a year living in Long Beach. My girlfriend, now wife, was going to school out in Long Beach, and I wasn't home much that year. I was on the road a lot, but living right in downtown Long Beach. So fast forward to 2010. Brides of Funkenstein got this gig headlining the first annual, I don't know if they're still doing it, but they were calling it the first annual Long Beach Funk Festival. And and it was a free festival outdoor in downtown. So here we were, me coming back to Long Beach after having lived there, playing for people just as far as I could see in every direction, downtown on the stage at night, outdoors, and Jerry was playing sax on that gig. We had Cynthia as well from Sly Stone's band. Yeah, that was our horn section. Yeah, and that was what an amazing. That was it. My top 3 shows of all time. That would definitely be one of them. No,
was that down by the aquarium and all that?
Yeah.
Right on that big open area there?
It was a little to the east of there, but yeah, on what do they call that? Ocean Boulevard. Yeah.
I've been out there a few times. Stayed out there by the refineries and the shipping areas and all that.
Okay, so you know.
Where the QE2 is.
So you got so that you said that was like 2010, so that would have been right around the time you were getting ready to join Night Ranger. Does Jack and Brad do they know you had you played with Jerry Martini?
At some point it came up. I was like, oh, it's I can't remember how or when, I guess, but yeah, at some point it came up, and we all realized the connection of Rubicon. That was Jerry Martini's band, and all the pieces started to fit together.
You tried name dropping him, and they're like, "Yeah, we know who he is." Like, I played with this guy, Jerry Martini. You might have heard of him. Jack's like, "Yeah, I think I have."
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's probably about the mid 2000s, and was this the first Garage Mahal?
Wow.
You just jumped into the Wayback.
He has everything.
If I would have known that picture was going to become an album cover.
Hey, man. I guess, first of all, we all got photos in our past that we don't like, but, I guess if Jack and, Kelly pull this out, you have a good reservoir of photos of them in the 80s that they probably don't like either. So, but
you're blowing my mind with this, Josh. I can't believe you go from like the Clinton administration CD straight to the Blueberry Cave CD. These are obscure albums.
He's really something there.
I like all kinds of. Listen. If you want to start a George Jones podcast, I'm your guy. I love George Jones, Hank Williams. Elvis, love Elvis. I take my grandma every year to go see an Elvis impersonator called Dwight Eisenhower. But anyways,
really?
Fantastic. But I think me and you had talked somewhere. I don't know if it was on the page or not, but I got, like, when I was in Afghanistan, I get on little kicks. And I got into like a 2-week kick of Billy Cobham. And so, like, I think when you were playing some of your stuff, it's like, well, I hear a little Billy Cobham. I hear a little bit of John Lord. So, Jaco and all that stuff, the Weathermen. So I like that type.
Not to interrupt you.
You're right.
That's fun Night Ranger converging on Billy Cobham's story is we were Night Ranger was playing last summer. We played at Sweetwater in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And
I was there, front row.
You were at that show.
Front row.
You were front row at that show. Right on.
I brought a guy who'd never seen Night Ranger, and he caught a drumstick. He lost his mind. He was like, "Oh my god!"
Oh, excellent. That
was a great show. It was hot. It was very hot, though.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. It was hot. Yeah, and it's inside that tent. But so after sound check, but before the show, somebody had offered to take some of us around and give us a little bit of a tour. So we're walking around, and the guy points out in one of the rooms. He's like, "Oh yeah, they're working on a record in there. That's Billy Cobham." I was like, "No way, that's Billy Cobham." So,
excuse me.
So I'm like, "Can I say hi?" So we walk in, and I introduce myself, and I've got, meanwhile Kelly's there, and Brad's there, and Carrie's there, and I'm just like, "Great to meet you. My first ever concert was seeing you. It's an honor." And at the time, Fareed was playing in his band, touring with Billy. So I was like,
"Wow."
So I was like, "God, I think you might know Fareed and Kai Eckhart. You've played with both of them, and I used to be in a band with them." And he's like, "Garage Mahal?" And I was like, "Yeah, That's right.
Right.
So
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
the rest of the night, Carrie's having fun with it. Dude, you got Billy Cobham to say Garage Mahal.
That's something you just like. You never thought that'd ever happen. That's a nice little bucket
What's
list
going to be
thing.
butcher babies, you know?
Yeah. Hey, real quick,
Yeah.
Eric, before we keep going, I want to ask you just real quick. Have you ever had the chance or familiar with Bootsy Collins?
Oh, sure.
Because
Yeah,
he lives in
absolutely.
Cincinnati by where Brent lives. He's a
I
Cincinnati
didn't know
boy.
that.
Yeah.
He's in Cincinnati.
He's a legend in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, he's a
Well, he's a legend.
he's
a legend.
all over. Wow. Wow,
That's
I didn't
right,
realize
baby.
he was in Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah, baby. Face is in the heart.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember when I first realized that was Bootsy playing on some of those old James Brown songs.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
He was a
It's-
session
yeah.
guy there.
They were all recorded here.
Little King
Really?
Records.
Yeah.
All
There's-
recorded in Cincinnati, huh?
Yeah, there used to be a little
Yeah.
studio in Cincinnati, and James Brown. I don't know the story how he came to Cincinnati, but he did a lot of stuff there, and Bootsy was part of his band.
Because he spoke like this. I was going, and nobody knew
Like,
where to take him, so they left
Cincinnati.
him here.
Well, a lot of country and western stars got their start in Cincinnati recording. Bobby
Both
Bear.
kinds, country and western.
Well, those are the only kind. But so Garage Mahal. When you're in Garage Mahal, Eric, is this? Are you satisfied? Is this what you're going to make a living at, or was you wanting something else besides that? Was it just temporary, or when you were in Garage Mahal, was it like, this is my band, this is what we're doing, and this is how I'm going to make my living is with this band?
I think I was young enough at that point to not be thinking about the future as much as I do now, for sure. But I was very passionate about the music that we were making, and it really was. It would be some hard living. Get to the end of the night and be like, somebody would come over and say, hey, this person over here said we can crash at their place if we want. And we're like, should we save the money on the hotel? Yeah, let's save the money.
Yeah.
Go crash at somebody's place, and then like wake up and drive however many hours and get there and load in our gear. It was. I'm spoiled now. I don't know if I could go back to those days, but I was super, super into it. Super passionate about what we were doing. But then I was also, because of the nature of it, where there were four of us, and we all considered each other equal. It was a democracy. So if anybody had any schedule conflicts or anything that we wanted to block off on the calendar, everybody had the opportunity to do so. So that's how I was able to be like, Brides of Funkenstein are playing a show on whatever all date. Or as time went on, I ended up, I actually wore this T-shirt just for the podcast. This is a old band T-shirt, and the band was called American Drag. The American Drag, and that was a rock band. And once I started playing with these guys, then I started really getting. I had always loved rock, but like finally playing with like a legit, like really talented original rock band was a bit of a revelation for me at that point. Being like, wow, this is something. This is really something I want to be doing. Which then led to. I don't know if you want me to skip ahead to that
Nope.
part of the story.
No, just wherever you want to go.
All right.
Yeah, it's your
So
We're
the
just
way
riding
that
along
all
with
this
you.
Hey, this is a Night Ranger oriented podcast. We
Get us
got
there.
5 hours, my friend.
5 hours. Yeah, my iPad's still at 63%. Go for a while.
Keep going.
So, so I had been the leader of the band American Drag was this guy named Willa Vankovich, who now lives in Nashville, and he plays lead guitar with the band The Guess Who. So we've both kind of found our way into classic rock, but during the later aughts, at the time that we were doing American Drag, he was touring with Jack Blades and Tommy Shaw. And so they were doing their what they were calling Shaw Blades, which was basically with acoustic guitars telling stories, singing songs, and it was great. I went and saw them in Chicago. Actually, I saw them. I want to say 2009,
2007, probably.
2000. Wow, the expert. Like I said, I'm learning as much from you all.
He's like Rain Man.
December 19th.
December 19th, 2007.
Started at 7 o'clock.
Right, actually. I think I was back like for Christmas time or something.
It's at the House of Blues.
Yeah, I get my underwear at Kmart's.
So the deal at the time with Shaw Blades was that they had Will on stage with them as well, but Will was kind of the utility guy, so he played different guitars and sing harmonies, and so April of 2010. I got a phone call from Will, and he's like, "Hey, I'm having a birthday party at my house. Will you come?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally, of course. Yeah, I'll come to your birthday party." And he said, "Excuse me." He said, "Can you bring your keyboard and just leave it in your car?" And I was like, "Okay, sure."
I've been asked that before.
Nothing weird about that at all.
So I'm at the show, I'm at the party, and show up to Will's party, and whose
birthday party was it? Did I miss that?
It was Will. It was Will's birthday party.
Will's birthday party. Okay.
Yeah, and actually at the time he was living next door to Jack. Like they were there was space between their properties, but so I'm over there at the party, and in walks Jack, and he came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm working on a solo album. I'm wondering if you want to play keyboards on one of the songs, like right now." And I was like, "Sure, yeah, okay." I just have to have my keyboard in the car.
Did you ask who he was?
Oddly enough,
right?
Did you have to ask who he was, or did you know?
I knew.
Okay.
I knew who he was. Yeah, fortunately.
Yeah.
Didn't have to be like, who are you?
From his Jerry Martini days.
What's it pay?
So Will's recording studio at the time was in his living room was the studio. So we set up, and he taught me this song, and we recorded it all in the midst of a party. Like right in the middle of a party is when we were doing this.
All right, everybody. Shh.
Fortunately, keyboards are line level, so it didn't matter if people were talking or whatever. And so then from there, he ended up calling me to play on more songs for what would become that solo album he put out in 2012.
Rock and Roll Ride.
Yeah, Rock and Roll Ride.
Do you remember what song you were recording there in the living room?
That's a great question. I've tried to remember. What was that first song?
Do you want me to tell you?
Oh, do you know?
I don't
He
know.
has your memories now, Josh.
If anybody would know, I would think it would be you.
If he did that, I'd be like, "Oh, wow, I'm really impressed."
Well, hey, I can go get the liner. I can go get the CD book, and we can start eliminating songs here.
I got it right here. I can get it.
All right. Let's just go on. So you record this one. You record this one song, and it leads to that solo album. So tell us a little bit more, about the party. Do you guys do you make sure he spells your name right? For the credits. How does that continue past the birthday party?
Wow, what even happened after we recorded?
Well, it was a birthday party, so it's probably hazy.
Josh, tell him what happened.
Well, I'll have to.
Josh, what did we do?
Well, let me go look up the San Francisco police record.
Got Huey Lewis.
Well, let me ask you this.
Huey up.
Let me ask you this, Eric. So we're talking about 2010 right here, correct? Okay, so you're still doing the Garage Mahal at that point, correct?
Wow. That's
Boom.
The most obscure album. Discovery, the Moog guitar. Wow. Can't believe you have a copy of that one.
Well, we got this one too if you want to go there.
Oh boy, here we go.
I listened to that one.
More Mr. Nice Guy. Little did I know that we were naming our album More Mr. Nice Guy, and then by 2011, in 2010 when we do this album, then by 2011, here I am at a benefit concert with Jack and Kelly playing with Alice Cooper. Yeah. Like little did I have any idea where all this was going.
Serendipity right there.
Yeah.
So at this birthday party, or at that 2010 time range, are you, when they ask you to go to the birthday party, are you allowed to just go, or do you have someone in your life that you need to third party it, and say, hey, babe, can I go to this birthday party? What's your personal life like in 2010?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was married by that point, although my wife wasn't there. I don't know where she was then. I don't know where she was. Working maybe. That's that particular night.
Well,
yeah, I got married in 2006.
All right, and she stayed with you after the birthday party, so you must not have gotten too crazy, if you can't remember, because she would let you know.
We met working on cruise ships. Actually, but when I was playing in the band, she was like working in the gift shop, and we hit it off, and. Yeah, that was like fully the Love Boat. Like I think half the band ended up marrying our boat girlfriends.
Awesome.
In the end, yeah.
That's the
real Below Deck.
Whoa! Wow.
TV show.
All right, there's our first edit.
No, there's a TV show called Below Deck. And they do charter cruises.
There's no such show you're trying to cover.
Eric knows.
And everybody's hooking up with everybody on the boat. It's hysterical.
Yeah.
So we're
kind of that. Yeah,
I've said too
kind
much.
of that way in real life.
So were you guys together that whole time from the 90s when you were doing the cruise ships? Or did you meet and then get back together, or was it we're together that whole time and got married in 2006?
We were doing the long distance thing, so it was, we were kind of together. Sometimes we were together for those years. But yeah, once I realized that Garage Mahal was taking off, and by the end of 2001, like our on again, off again, we had started to get more into into a flow and more of an on again, especially by 2002. So I made that choice to move in with her in 2002 in Long Beach, but we just I was like, hey, where I really want to be is the Bay Area, and so I spent a year there, and she agreed to transfer to a college up here. So
now she was here
in 2003.
She was from California originally, or?
Yeah, she was. She's a Valley girl, actually.
All right,
totally.
Grew up in the San Fernando Valley. Yeah.
Well, at least you met someone from California and not like Delaware or something. That would have made it a little bit more.
I'm in Delaware.
Delaware is on my bucket list. I've played music in 49 states.
Oh,
there's only one state that I've never had a gig in,
and it's Delaware.
And that's Delaware. So I got to get a gig in Delaware.
Here's what we do. We hold a Fans in Motion Night Ranger convention. We hire Eric Levy. If we can't afford him, we'll get an Eric Levy impersonator, and
like Garage Mahal to reunite.
Yeah, well, now is Garage Mahal still together? Correct? Are they still doing stuff?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many shows they're playing these days, but
all right.
All right. It's they started playing again a few years ago, maybe. I played. I did, probably 2 years ago now, played a weekend with them in Colorado. And that was fun. That was fully like seeing old friends and, how am I going to remember all this music with them? Like somehow it magically came back to all of us.
Well, it's a lot.
That was really fun. And, but at this point I'm grateful and happy to be with Night Ranger, and so the keyboard player who's with Garage Mahal now, his name is Osam, and Osam Ezeldin lives in the Bay Area as well, and just like phenomenally talented. So they're in good hands.
All right.
When I'm not there, they're definitely in good hands.
So take us after the birthday party. Where does those connections that you made there lead to?
So while all this was going on in 2010, Fareed was leaving the band, and at the end of 2010 he was going to leave, and it was I had really mixed feelings about the whole thing, because he was the one who got me in, and he was my mentor, and but we decided to continue the band, and we actually had our booking agent on board, ready to go. Had the record company was on board. We had recorded a 3-song demo and took a few pictures. We had basically everything ready except for like actual shows. Like we didn't have, going into 2011, we just didn't have any actual shows on the books, but we had everything else in place. But yeah, I had really mixed emotions. And so we had the day before we were going out to play our very last tour, which I think it was maybe December 26th or so. Maybe it was even Christmas night. I don't know. Anyway, it was the night before we're going out to play this last tour, which was 3 or 4 shows between Christmas and New Year's. And I get a call that night from Jack. And he said, hey, so Night Ranger's keyboard player's leaving the band, and we're about to record a new solo album, and then we're going to go on a world tour with Journey. Are you interested? And I said, yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely interested. I'm leaving tomorrow to go play this tour, but I'll be back in a week. And so I went that night. This was, back in the iPod days. So I went and downloaded iTunes, Night Ranger's Greatest Hits, and I also downloaded Hole in the Sun, which
there you go.
To this day, I've never played a single one of those songs on a Night Ranger show. We've never done any of them, but I guess at the time I was like, well, what should I check out? And that was their most recent album. So checked that out, checked out the Greatest Hits, and so we went and we played these shows for that last week. And so January 1st, we had just played the following night, or the previous night, in British Columbia. And we were driving our van back to the Bay Area, and we ended up hitting some black ice in Washington State, and ended up like full 360 into the ditch in the snow, and like we fell like in between trees. So we were all safe and everybody was fine, but waited 3.5 hours for AAA, and ended up having to abandon our van in Washington State, which was the only thing that Garage Mahal owned. The only thing the band actually owned was that van, and we abandoned it. So it felt like a clean, okay, that chapter of my life is now complete, and this new chapter of my life is beginning. And I'm so happy too. In retrospect, it's because I didn't really realize what I was getting myself into fully. I guess I don't know what I figured. I was used to this thing where I would manage to have these different bands and different projects and find a way to make them work together. And but I'm so happy that when I came to Night Ranger, it was really fresh and clean, and not having to worry about anything else, but just be focused on that band, especially the year that we had in 2011 with the album and the touring. It all worked out the way it should have, the perfect way, really.
So can I ask you, Eric, based on Wikipedia, I think is where I saw this, is you basically joined Night Ranger in March of 2011, and the album comes out in June.
Right.
Does that sound about right? So
that sounds right. Yeah.
Were the songs
March 13th?
definitely March 13th. I don't know, Vern.
It was a Tuesday. It was a Tuesday.
Excellent.
It was a Tuesday. Actually.
So my question is were the songs pretty much ready to go, or did you have to come in and they were still writing? And along with that, to piggyback onto you as a keyboard player and learning their catalog, did they give you? I mean, were the charts? Was there sheet music, or were you learning by ear? I mean, how did you learn their back catalog and then also the new stuff for the new album that you were going to be part of?
So the new stuff was. Well, the one song that was a carryover was Growing Up in California, because that was, I had already recorded that with Jack, and at the time Jack was planning to use that on his solo album, and then at some point that became a Night Ranger song. So that one I already knew. but then the rest of the songs were really like a lot of it was written together, or somebody would come in with an idea and we would just jam on it and develop it. And I still remember the very first night I went over to the studio and met Kelly and met Brad, and Joel wasn't there, so it was just the four of us, and we were working on another song that I don't think it even made the album. Yeah. I don't know whatever happened to the song that we were playing that night either, but I remember going home and telling my wife, whatever happens with Night Ranger, whatever happens, that was just incredibly fun. That was just incredibly fun to go jam with those guys. I loved it. And so once I got off the road, and Jack started just at the time he was living 15 minutes away from me, so he would just be like he was like, just come over every day.
Oh man,
and hang out. And most days we're probably not going to record keyboards, but hang out and be a part of it. So yeah, that was really great through the whole writing session. It was a lot of just hanging out in the studio, getting to know everybody. And then when we finally got to the point where and at first the whole March 13th joining the band thing. So at first Jack was like, okay, so we want you to be the keyboard player for this album. But then as far as, going forward with the live shows, let's see how this goes first. And so a lot of it was, just hanging out, coming up with songs together and developing songs together. And then finally, when that announcement was made, that day, I remember I was in the I was in the studio, and I think I was in there with Kelly, maybe working on something, and in walked Jack and Joel and Brad, and Jack comes over and said, so we got the show in April. Do you want to play the show with us? And I was like, yeah, for sure, yeah. And then the other guys shook my hand and said congratulations, and I was like, okay, well, I guess okay, wow. I guess I'm in the band. I guess that was it.
So Hole in the Sun, and then Don't Tell Me You Love Me, and that's about it.
So Eric, when you're in that creative process with them, did they ever give you limitations or guidance on what to play, or was it just pretty much play what you feel and go with it, or was did they kind of give you a set of parameters to stay within?
Wow, I think maybe song by song, case by case, but a lot of that Somewhere in California album was us coming up with developing these songs together. So us jamming a song over and over and over, and slowly over time, it's like people are refining their parts, and so we were communicating with each other, to a certain extent verbally, like, hey, try this or try this, but to a certain extent just musically, like, okay, I hear somebody, Brad's playing that harmony there, and what if I play this, and does that work? So a lot of that kind of thing too. But yeah, that album was really able to happen organically in a way that I think more so than High Road, certainly more so than Don't Let Up. Just because of the circumstances.
How did your you said you were raised in a real strict household. How did your mother handle the fact that not only are you in a secular band called Night Ranger, but you're also playing, with a musician who was the guitar player for Ozzy Osbourne?
I never thought about it that way.
Did you talk her through it slowly? Did where it was they're all going to laugh at you moment?
She just didn't know that.
Hand her a copy of Diary of a Madman and go, this is not me.
Yeah. But what is your mother? What did your mother think then, and what does your mother? With it being such a, difference between how you were raised and where you were at now. was she happy, with it? Was she still hoping you were going to be playing in the gospel band? How did the family take it?
I think by that point she had probably accepted that my music career was going a secular route. But that being said, it's her coming whenever we play in Chicago. She almost always comes out with my sister and her husband and their 3 kids, and it's Night Ranger is really in a way it's more of a family friendly show than anything that I was doing previously. Kind of weird to think of how that how that's even possible, but now it's she loves it. She loves showing up, and everybody knows her, and it's
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really come together.
So if you have if you have friends like I do, will give you crap, just to give you crap. When you joined Night Ranger, was all your jam band buddies giving you crap for, hey, you're playing all this,
Ooh, Mr. Structure. I like 4/4. Woo, aren't you cool?
So
I don't want to stretch my boundaries.
Did they give?
I like time signature.
We really do love Night Ranger, by the way. We really do love it.
But I think the most infamous incident happened early on. It was in 2011. There was a thread on one of the the band Fish, one of their websites, or anyway, there was a thread talking about how I had joined Night Ranger, and somebody had put it that they said that I had fallen on my own sword.
Oh.
So that became the running joke, especially with our former tour manager Todd. That was fully like the running joke, where it's like every time we would do something that was just like incredible, like like the time that we the first time that I played a NASCAR event with them, and we're up there singing the Star Spangled Banner, and we're up on the stage like meeting all the drivers, and then we get in the pace cars and we're like starting the race off, and roaring of 80,000 people or whatever it was, and it's just this incredible moment. And afterwards, Todd's like, so how's that falling on your sword working out for you? And that was the running joke for it's still to a certain degree the running joke. Whenever we do something that's like really extraordinary, I'll hear about that.
Well, I was at that 35 years in a night show in Chicago, which was that was awesome. I assume your family was there too.
Yep, they were there. Mm-hmm.
Remember that show in Chicago?
One time?
Yeah. Dude, you were so good. That was awesome.
Remember when you said the love you make is greater than the love you take? That's awesome.
Aaron,
nice.
But
I got a serious question for you.
Go,
all right.
That's why they call me Whiskers.
The previous keyboardist for Night Ranger, Christian,
yes.
He's also a Chicago boy, I believe.
He is, born and raised.
Did you have any knowledge of each other beforehand, or did you know? I mean,
Chicago is such a, I guess,
huge,
it's a big enough city where, they're depending on what kind of circles you're in, you may or may not encounter other musicians. So when I was coming in, and Christian couldn't have been nicer. I mean, like, for me coming in, not only to a brand new band, but also to a whole, I had never done anything in the classic rock scene, or, at any productions that were this big. I was used to loading into bars or maybe some hippie festivals, or, on occasion, sure, I'd play the Long Beach Funk Festival or some big show, but, coming into this like pro situation with Night Ranger, it was new, but Christian was great about it. First, he was like, we met 10 years ago. I don't know if you remember, and like reminded me how he was like, I had ordered some custom case from some guy in Chicago, and Christian was there picking up something else, and we met in passing. And I was like, wow, I can't even believe you remember that. But he couldn't have been greater. He was like, hey, if you want any of my old sounds, if you want any of my samples that I've been using, he sent all that over to me.
Oh, wow.
Just so incredibly kind. Yeah. He was really great.
Well, it's funny because the other day I noticed that it was the anniversary for Somewhere in California coming out, and it posted up on my Facebook feed, and I sent a message to
Josh?
Andy.
Mine's signed.
Yeah, mine is too.
Copy.
But my message to Andy was,
Josh is thinking his out.
"Oh my God, I got the new Night Ranger album. Will you shut up, everybody?" No, I'm joking.
I know. Brent hardly talks here.
There's a reason for it. My post was, "Oh my God, Andy, the classic Night Ranger sound is back." Yeah. I mean, you had something very directly to do with that, and
thank you.
And actually, on the Don't Let Up tour, I met you in Independence, Kentucky, at a St. Cecilia's festival. And
sure, yeah.
And I managed to weasel my way backstage through someone that knew the guy named Jim Shue, his name was, that was, I guess, running the show. And you and I had a moment where I got to thank you. Oh, I know. We
had a moment.
Thank you, because I'm not trying to fast forward to Don't Let Up too much, but
yeah,
I told you that night when I listened to that album with the earbuds in, and just hearing these little pieces, little things that you do, I would call Andy. I'm like, have you noticed this? It's incredible. I don't know if you recall that at all. I don't, but
and
thank you.
And
it's amazing.
And echoing on what Brent said, Hole in the Sun, it's a Night Ranger album. We enjoy it. We have some issues with it. I mean, no matter what band you like, there's always going to be something in that catalog that you don't gravitate to, and that seems to be the album. And so I was in Africa in 2011. I was lucky to have any internet. I was with the military, and so we had real weak internet. I see that this is coming out, the single, so I go to download it on iTunes. I'm probably taking up our whole units bandwidth or whatever. But hey, I need that new Night Ranger track. It took like 50 minutes to download, and I knew that they had a new keyboard player. And I hit play after waiting an hour to get it, and the first thing you hear is you lead this album off, and I was just like, listen,
Do I? What's the first song?
Growing up in California, and you just hear that that little keyboard riff, but then you also, one thing that you did that I hadn't heard in a while that Fitz did, and a lot of people, don't think about it, but Fitz really drove some of those songs. He drives. I always say he drives. You Can Still Rock in America just as much as Brad or Jeff, and that's Somewhere in California. You're driving that song. It's your riff that's playing through the verses, more than Jack, or more than Brad or Joel. So when I heard that, I was like, I was excited, and it was great because I really hadn't been excited for studio work, a studio album in a long time. There had only been one studio album in 12, 13 years, and it was A Hole in the Sun.
Yeah.
So at that point, right?
Yep, at that point. And it was great. Like I said, you kick off the album, and I tell people that we are lucky that Night Ranger had one of their best decades this last decade. Not very many bands have 30, 40-year careers. You can't say that one of their best decade is the most recent. And this album kicked it off.
Absolutely.
And you're a huge part of that. So
wow,
I said,
thank you so much. Wow.
Huge part of it. Well, we're fans. We noticed it right away. It just felt like, oh my God, the boys are back.
Yep.
And
in a way it was,
thank
sorry.
you.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. In a way, I was coming from the kind of I love like the 1970s keyboard kind of, it's, you can see in my room here, I've got a Fender Rhodes and a Worley and a
Yeah.
I'm into these retro keyboards. So when I started really checking out the music of Night Ranger, I especially fell in love with the keyboard sounds from the first 2 albums, because Dawn Patrol is a lot of organ, a lot of Hammond organ, and piano. Midnight Madness has piano too, and Midnight Madness has more synths, but it's like the early 80s. He was playing Roland's, Alan was playing Roland's. But those were in the days of the analog synthesizers, right before 1983 was when a keyboard called the Yamaha DX7 out. And,
hey, Eric, not to interrupt. Eric, can you move? Are you guys having issues with his audio?
Yeah, as soon as you moved your iPad, your audio went crazy.
Hold on.
Sorry to hear that.
Hold on. You're
okay now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You're good. So we were catching in 1983. You're talking about I think some new equipment.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So right, like the sound of the first 2 albums to me is the keyboard sound is organ, piano, and analog synthesizers. And for where I was coming from musically coming in, where even in the rock band The American Drag, I was doing a lot of organ and clavinet and acoustic. Like, these were the kind of tones that I was into already when I was coming into the band. So it really felt like a good fit that way, in that those were the kind of tones that I personally wanted to gravitate toward anyway. So the idea of like, if I play those kind of sounds, that's actually like bringing us back to the origins of the original Night Ranger sound was all the better. It really felt like great. And I've really kept that episode, or I just lost whatever word.
That mindset.
That sound, or
that mindset. Thank you. Yeah, I brought that through the whole way, through High Road and Don't Let Up. And sure, I'll play other sounds when they're appropriate. There's a lot of strings on High Road. And Alan started bringing in some string sounds by Seven Wishes. But it fits my personal ethos to go for those tones, and it just seems like it works out all the way around.
Eric, I don't know, real quick, I made a note on one of the songs that really jumped out at me off of Somewhere in California, Rock and Roll Tonight.
Oh, sure, yeah.
There's a heavy, I don't know if it's a Hammond sound or if it's Moog, but it's a real, I've got it queued up a little bit. I don't know if you probably remember it, but it's it's hard to hear, but there's something in the back that's, it seems like I missed the part, but
yeah. I hope we don't get.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So Eric,
it was a real heavy sound there.
Eric, can you tell us about Brad Gillis' guitar playing there?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my cue was off.
That's great.
So
see, this is something that would happen to me, and it didn't, and it's great.
Now, if Night Ranger would put us on payroll, we wouldn't have these issues. But
yeah, really.
Sure.
Anyway, I thought it was a cool sound, and I not being a keyboard player, I don't know what that sound was.
Not the sound
remember.
that we heard, but the sound that he was thinking about.
Sound right before that.
So Eric, the album comes out. Let me ask you this: would that tour have been the first time you seen your face on a tour shirt?
Yes.
So how was that? Was that just something? I mean, it has to be kind of trippy just to, walk by a merch stand and go, "Hey, who's that good-looking fella?"
That brings back another memory of being in Japan for the first time in 2011 and having Todd come over to me and show me the Japan tour book with the double-paged Eric Levy and my quote to the Japanese fans. And again, telling me, so how's it feel falling on your sword?
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
All right. How was that, everybody? The first part of this 2-part interview with Eric Levy. It was great. The stories, if you love the first part, you're going to love the second part. Just, you got to watch all this. This is some great stuff. You know, I mean, just personally for me, I loved hearing about how Eric was, he plays, I didn't know he played drums. I don't know if anybody knew that. That was fascinating to me. And I could go on all night talking about that with Eric. And just a fun guy, and I hope you all enjoyed it as much as we did, and looking forward to the second part. Josh, you got anything you want to?
Well, another thing my goal with these podcasts is I want to get to know these individuals on a different level. So when I hold up my Rubicon album now and I see Greg Eckler on there, it means so much more because I know the whole story behind this individual. He's not just a name on a couple records that I own, and not just a couple. I probably own about 19 copies of that Rubicon album. But I feel that way after this Eric Levy interview. Yeah, I mean, I knew a little bit about him just because you're on Facebook with him, and you know a little bit more about people with social media. But I definitely know a ton more after this interview, and it makes these individuals who create this music that I enjoy so much, it makes them, I guess, human kind. You know, they're not just this figure that's on these records that you meet occasionally once or twice a year at a meet and greet or whatever. I look at these albums, the CD now, and you know this person's story of how he got to be on this record, and it makes it more personal and just makes you really enjoy the music even more.
Absolutely. Brent, what are your takeaways from this first part?
Well, first of all, I don't think there's going to be anything more extensive than this podcast episode 1 and 2 of Eric Levy. I don't think there's anything out there like this. I think, like I said, he didn't hold back. He was a real guy. It was a great conversation. That's exactly what it was a conversation. That's what it became. So I don't want to oversell the next part. But if you don't think it can get any better than this, then tune in next Wednesday.
Yep.
Wednesday night, and you'll love it.
Yeah, I mean, the first part seems like we're all kind of feeling it out, and we're kind of getting through the stuff we need to get through, but we start to really. It seems like we became, I mean, I don't want to be as bold as to say friends, but it felt like we were just talking to a friend at the end, and. Again, can't praise Eric enough. He was fantastic, and I was very honored to be part of this.
It's great when you click with someone, and when you click with someone, it just becomes that much more special. But yeah, it was four guys sitting around shooting the crap. It was no different than with Eckler. It turned out being three guys just sitting around, but we were, storytelling. It was just phenomenal. I wish you all could do this. Wish you all could do it, but you can't. I'm in the seat. You ain't getting it.
And the good thing is, too, we are currently working on putting together a website and working on getting these podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, and all that other stuff out there that the young kids enjoy. So it'll probably be about the middle of July when I get all that going. So keep an eye out. You'll be able to get it on different avenues.
Yeah, everybody. So, and just wrapping things up, share this with your friends. It's a great interview, and if you like this episode, get it out there. And like Josh, I think you mentioned, we need to mention invite more people to the page. How many numbers are we at now? Do you
We're like 870 on the Facebook page. So go to the page, hit the blue invite button, invite all your friends. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and I don't know where I'm going after that.
Copy the link and post it to your page, your own personal page.
Biggest thing is what we're recording right now is going to be released July 3rd. In 2 days, you got Echo Bats with Eric Levy and Joel Hoekstra of Night Ranger, and James Lomenzo, Tony Arnell, and Matt Starr. So keep an eye out for that. We'll share it definitely to our page, but yeah, we got some new music coming out, so that's good for after having a little bit of a dry spell here this summer. Not really much being released, so we got something new coming out.
All right. Does anybody got anything last they want to say? Brent, you want to add anything before we pack this one in?
Thank you for watching. Like I said, watch next week. It won't disappoint. And you notice Eric got his own logo. I still got people asking me for it, and I'm flattered that you ask. But, if your name's like Arnold Schwarzenegger and you're going to be doing an interview with us, Arnold's not getting a logo. Maybe we can work something out in the future, like I said, contest or something like that. But Eric deserved it, don't you think?
Absolutely. Josh, any parting words?
Well, if you guys get after listening to this part 1 video, if in the comments of the YouTube video, you can leave it on the page too as well, but just out of the last 3 studio albums that Eric's been on, so we got Somewhere in California, High Road, Don't Let Up. Which of those 3 is your favorite?
Yeah.
And just give a little reason why. So leave us that comment. I love seeing, everybody's opinion and stuff. So leave us that comment and join us next week where we have part 2.
Peace.
We are out of here.